we've been talking a lot about Trump on the show recently, and, you know, it's hard not to. It's hard to ignore him, but there is this whole universe of the Democrats as well that are, you know, I think we've, you know, perhaps neglected, and I think now would be a good time to refocus on the Democratic Party.
We mustn't neglect the libs.
Yes. And I guess, you know, I said I'm not going to talk about his State of the Union or address to Congress last night, but maybe begin by talking about the Democratic response to that last night, because that was surreal.
Look, when somebody says that they're going to publish all immigrant crimes and, you know, has this heart-tugging moment where they have the widow of a guy that they got killed in the dumbest way possible, the best thing you can do is trot out a bone-dry dying man to talk about Medicare expansion that he did 4, 5, 6 years ago.
To be clear, though, this guy is not, the Bashir or whatever, is not actually in government, right? He's the former governor of Kentucky.
He's the ex-governor of Kentucky, and he did do one of the most successful Obamacare rollouts in the country. His KY Connect system, the state exchanges he created, was one of the better ones. But he left office after term limits last year, and he was replaced by a Republican who promptly destroyed the exchange at the cost of millions of dollars and has promised to basically kill poor people. So once again, hell of a job maintaining all of those awesome incremental gains that you keep making, and then them not at all just being immediately erased because you don't know how to fucking sell anything.
Well, I thought just visually it was very surreal because he looks to be about 90 years old and was sitting in a diner filled with other old people. And it reminded me of that scene late in The Sopranos where Artie and his wife, like the restaurant is losing money and they have to put coupons in the newspaper for like the early bird special. And like they open the door at the end of the episode and just this like sea of retirees just flood into the restaurant for like half off pasta. That's what it reminded me of. It was a very sort of John Kasich scene as well.
Yeah. These are the people that John Kasich asks for phone chargers and spare crumbs from.
And it's such a perfect example of what these fuckers take from things. So they lose the election to Trump, total shocker, and that makes them start thinking, oh my God, what should we do? How do we deal with reaching out to these people who have spurned us? And does it have anything to do with, you know, actually proposing policies or anything? No. Just get the cast of Cocoon out there. Be like, hey, old white people, we have old white people too.
Yeah.
Basics, panicked, surface level bullshit.
Joanne Reed posted something like, to all the liberal keyboard warriors snarking out there, which I'm all those things. She said, keep in mind that this response is not game towards Democrats. It's game towards undecideds. And if this election showed anything, undecideds love actively dying Democrats who present barely any alternative vision and just suck up all the air around them. That's what people were clamoring for. The biggest complaint about Hillary was that she was not dying enough.
Well, I mean, to your point, Felix, like, this is the refrain you hear a lot. Like, you know, it looks bad to people like us because, you know, we're a pack of, you know, ironic jackals living in elite circles. But like, no, you don't understand what this is like to the rest of the people.
If anyone understands, it's Joanne Reed, by the way.
But, you know, like to this point, like, okay, well, so if this message isn't to us, right, and it isn't to like any of the millions of young people who are like angry and energized right now, who the fuck is it for? And this goes into, you know, what I want to bring up now, the other thing that happened this past week, the DNC chair election, right? Close race, but Tom Perez, who was very clearly the establishment stalking horse, pulled out this, you know, squeaker win against Keith Ellison, who clearly represented more of the younger Bernie wing of the party. And now I remember in our episode right after the election, our We Live in the Zone Now episode, I made mention of the possibility of Keith Ellison being the DNC chair. And I think I said, I'm sure he's all right, but I'm not going to try to get too emotionally invested in anything the Democratic Party does because, like, like this is like polishing the brass in the Titanic at this point. That being said, seeing this all go down, it sort of felt like, I told myself I wasn't going to get angry or watch the Super Bowl, and then I did, and of course was really fucking angry at how it turned out.
I was not surprised. I was not upset because it's not a meaningful position, to be honest. It's not like he would be setting the platform for the Democratic Party. So I was neither surprised nor upset. But when I thought about it, I realized they're not even giving us totally symbolic gestures anymore. Which is super strange, because this would have been, for a well-oiled Democratic Party, this would have been like a perfect opportunity for them to just pull some bullshit out and be like, we gave you a Bernie guy for a DNC chair. And meanwhile, people like me would be screaming, it doesn't mean anything. He doesn't really have any power.
Right. I never thought, like, at no point was I like, the Democratic Party is going to go in this good direction if Ellison gets in there. My rage is really at the total contempt they have for anything resembling the left. This young wave,
because
this young wave behind Ellison.
It would have been conceding nothing.
Yeah,
it would have been
nothing.
a total gesture.
It would still, Chuck Schumer would still be fucking running things. But They can't even do that. They can't even fucking do that.
Yeah.
They told their fucking people to applaud for every fucking thing that Trump said, but they can't even give the left wing of the party fucking shit. That fucking ghoul Perez gets up there and says, I'm going to make Ellison the fake vice chair because I want him to be the face of the party. Well, you just completely got in the way of him being the fucking face of the party.
You could have had a good face. They don't even want a good face anymore.
They want a guy who looks like an apple that I left on my fucking radiator for 2 weeks.
Well, they can't give it up. Even symbolic gestures are too much because it opens the door, and they got to keep the door fucking slammed shut. And they need to. It's all about exerting power and showing them who's boss.
But that's insane.
You have no opportunities here.
That's insane, though. If they want to maintain power, they should be throwing us a bone right now and lying to us the way the Democratic Party has in the past, and been like, "Well, look, we'll give you this; it'll be great."
Full-heartedly, especially with Trump as president, you got nowhere else to go. So you could have your little tantrums, but at the end of the day, we're the only game in town. You're going to come back to us. They're 100% confident of that, and so they have nothing but contempt. They're not scared at all.
They are. They're just like fucking like horrible, shitty, alcoholic, deadbeat dad saying she'll come back. She's not coming back.
And they can't even face it and tell us what this actually is. It's so obvious to anyone who has any clear vision of this. Just a fucking act of spite towards anything resembling the left. Yeah. But when you challenge them on it, they go, well, Perez and Ellison are the same. Well, why the fuck did he run then? Why the fuck is he in there?
Felix, that is exactly the point that I saw being made over and over again, where it's just like, while all these people that are upset about Ellison, him and Ellison are exactly the same. And then I actually tried to engage a couple people, and I said, if they're exactly the same, why did Perez run? And the answer I got over and over again was, he's an ambitious guy. Maybe he thought he'd do a better job, which is totally fucking wrong.
Yeah,
and to this point, actually, I want to read from a Medium post that Matt Brunig wrote this week, summarizing this, and I thought it was very concise and clear, and said it exactly what needed to be said. But the essential point is that Tom Perez was solicited. This is covered in news articles. He was specifically recruited and solicited by Obama's people to run against Keith Ellison. He didn't just decide for himself that my vision, hey, I can get things done better than Ellison, or, I'm ambitious, I want to do this. So let me just read here from what Brunig writes. He says, let's be very clear about what happened here. It was the establishment wing that decided to recruit and then stand up a candidate in order to fight an internal battle against the left faction of the party. It was the establishment wing that then dumped massive piles of opposition research on one of their own party members. He's, of course, referring to all of the bullshit that came out about how Keith Ellison was an anti-Semite, intimations about his Muslim faith, like Nation of Islam bullshit. Continuing here, it says, and it was the establishment wing that did all of this in the shadow of Trump, sowing disunity in order to contest a position whose leadership they insist does not really matter. And this is it. They will use this now to be again, a call for unity, to come together. Let's rally around Perez. We need to have a unified party. And just to close out, I think he gets exactly right what this means for people who are on the left or consider the Democratic Party inadequate. Just to finish, he says, the left should focus its energies on organizing under alternative institutions that, if they engage the Democratic Party at all, only do so in order to attempt hostile takeovers of various power positions, including primarying moderate Democrats and winning local party positions. Only a sucker would do more than that, given what the party has just shown itself to be about at this time. You think that's fair enough?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another element to this that infuriated me more than anything, and it goes back to the thing where people would say, well, they're the same. They have the same views. And yes, of course, the first question is, well, why the hell did Perez run in the first place? But the second is that even saying that shows that these people are either lying or genuinely don't understand how politics works, and I think it's probably 50-50. And that is, it does not matter what an individual political figure's personal political views on any subject are. What matters is, who is he beholden to his power for? What coalition of interests does he owe his position? And when it's Perez versus Ellison, Perez was beholden to the Obama and Clinton people and the big donors, and Ellison would have been beholden to the grassroots. That's the fucking difference. Their personal views on any specific issue are absolutely meaningless. And to not understand that basic fact about politics, no wonder you get your fucking asses kicked every goddamn day, because you don't realize what's happening, because you genuinely do think this is some West Wing shit where it comes down to your truly held beliefs and your ability to convince people of it.
Matt, that's exactly right. And like I feel like I see this all the time, this very superficial understanding of politics where you just sort of like rank the public statements of figures based on like whether you like it or not, or whether it sounds good to you, and just like, line them up together along with their, identity or whatever, and then just score it that way. And it's just this very surface level understanding. And that's why I think it's basically impossible to argue with these people, because we're dealing from a different deck entirely.
Well, they're building a golem of cynicism, and they expect it to work for them and to never bite them in the ass. They expect the people that they're, telling to lower their standards are never going to resent them for doing that.
Yep.
It's insane.
They're like an incompetent colonial authority. It's like being run by a French colonial officer. That's the opposition party. Obama has just secured $60 million to write about his book. And do you think this guy gives a fuck? Do you think he gives a fucking shit about what happens?
No.
He doesn't. He's just another fucking rich guy who went to an Ivy League school now. But you are going to let him dictate who runs the party. Who even knows what his motivations are? Maybe it's this egotistical thing that he wants the Democratic Party to still be the Obama Democrats. The people who, even if they have these beliefs like Tom Perez allegedly does, the ambitious Tom Perez who didn't run for a party leadership position until he was 900 fucking years old, who they may have these beliefs, but the way that they execute those beliefs is by showing up to negotiation with that in the back of their head, but already beginning at the position of compromise. Another reason why their personal beliefs don't matter, because they worship process and compromise so much that ideal that they had, it's already out the window when they're walking down the hallway to meet with fucking McConnell or whatever fucking ghoul.
And to your point about compromise, I think this speaks to Ellison himself. He is a compromise candidate, okay? He's
like
not
Sanders was.
Like Bernie Sanders. Like, he's not great, but there are signs that he is not completely terrible. And like, this is the thing, like, I think Amber's right. I don't think it really matters who's in charge of the DNC, but I think like this is of note, at least because what it is it's an augur of the future. And again, we are,
they've taken on a policy of contempt.
The question
That's
is asked.
how they're dealing with the internal dissent. That's how they're dealing with the loss of their base.
The energy
Contempt.
is out there, and like there are signs to be like, can we have something that's not completely awful to represent it? And the answer, so thus far, every time has been no. Eat shit. So that's why I think the Ellison Perez thing matters to the extent that it does at all.
I think it, in some ways, this actually does augur well, and this isn't just me saying it after the fact because Ellison lost. The day before, I thought, well, what actually is the end game here? And I thought about Ellison being in there, and I thought about all this. There's this incredible left energy now, but if Ellison got in there, there would have been thousands of activists whose goal is now to reform this fucking awful monster that's run by non-elected officials who resent people even contacting them, that's funded entirely by fucking financial services lobbyists and Lockheed Martin, that they could reform this thing into being not being what it is. I think it augurs better that this energy will not be tied down into the Democratic Party, but it's still incredibly frustrating to deal with these people's smugness, their know-it-all attitude. As Matt said, you cannot act like you have the practical solution to everything, that you worship practicality, if you fucking not just lost to Grimace for president, but you lost 1,000+ state legislature seats. You lost 13 governorships. You lost the House and the fucking Senate. You lost everything that isn't the fucking Westchester School Board. And you're even going to fucking lose that when you finally run Chelsea Clinton and she loses to one of Donald Trump's illegitimate sons.
Well, I mean, yeah, and this is when I try to engage some of these people, I just think like for a lot of people who are still, like, I don't know, Democratic Party stalwarts or liberals, I don't know why, but I don't think they've fully come to terms with just how completely the Democratic Party has failed as a party and them.
Hillary won by 3 million votes. They don't have to do anything.
Right. I mean, that's their line, right? That Hillary actually did win the election, so they didn't do anything wrong.
That's because nobody knew about the Electoral College until the day after the election.
Any sort of like they can't even symbolically get rid of some failed apparatchik like Tom Perez, who has the stink of failure all over him. And it's just like, with the Democratic Party, we know it would be a positive sign. The next Democratic Party conference should take a page from the Bath Party conference in 1979,